So you've got a pond with goldfish or koi, and you probably know that how you feed them changes with the seasons. But here's the secret that a lot of people miss. It has absolutely nothing to do with the calendar month and everything to do with the number on your pond thermometer. Seriously, getting this right is the single most important thing for their health, and today we're going to break it all down.
This story, it's so familiar for anyone who's kept a pond. You get that first warm, sunny day of spring and you think, yes, it's time. But jumping right back into those summer feeding habits is one of the biggest and most dangerous mistakes you can make. It leads to sick fish and a messy pond, just like it did for Lydia. So what is actually going on inside our fish?
To really understand why this happens, we have to get into their biology. It all comes down to one simple but absolutely critical fact about them: their cold-blooded secret.
Okay, so unlike you and me, goldfish and koi can't control their own body temperature. The water around them is basically the master control dial for their entire body. When the water is warm, their metabolism is fired up, running at full speed. But when it gets cold, everything, and I mean everything, slows way, way down. And that, right there, changes the whole game when it comes to feeding.
Now get ready for this, because it's a real game changer, and it explains so much. Goldfish don't have a stomach. Not like we do. Food doesn't go into some holding tank to be broken down. Nope. It passes directly into their intestines, which makes their whole digestive process incredibly sensitive to that metabolic dial we were just talking about. So here's how it works. Food goes straight into the intestines, and then all these tiny probiotic bacteria get to work. They're the real engines of the digestive system. But, and this is the most important part, how active those bacteria are is completely tied to the water temperature. In warm water, they're like a busy factory, buzzing with activity. But in cold water, that factory completely shuts down. And all of that brings us to the most critical time of the entire year, spring. This is when your fish are slowly, gently waking up from being dormant all winter. It's also where almost all feeding mistakes happen.
So let's look at the rule book for spring. And this first one is an absolute deal breaker. If your pond thermometer is below 10 degrees Celsius, that's 50 Fahrenheit, you do not feed your fish, period. Their digestive system is still offline. Now, once that water is consistently between 10 and 14 Celsius, you can start feeding, but very lightly and with a special kind of food, wheat germ.
So why wheat germ? Well, it's high in carbohydrates and just super easy for them to digest. It's the perfect food to gently restart their system. And you only want to feed them in the middle of the day, say between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., when the water's at its warmest. This gives those little probiotic bacteria the best shot at doing their job. And please remember, any food they don't eat just sinks and rots, which pollutes the water and really stresses your fish.
All right, now as that water warms up, the whole game changes. We're moving into summer, the season for growth, high energy, and for bringing out those beautiful, vibrant colors. Once that water temperature gets above 15 Celsius or around 60 Fahrenheit, their metabolism is really humming. Now you can switch to a high-protein staple or growth food and feed them a couple of times a day. But notice that top line? When the water gets really hot, over 30 Celsius or 86 Fahrenheit, you actually need to back off and reduce the feeding. Extreme heat stresses the fish out and lowers the oxygen in the water, which makes digestion a lot harder for them. This really makes it clear, doesn't it? On one side, you have the summer foods, packed with protein to build muscle and enhance color when their bodies are working at peak performance. On the other side, you have wheat germ. It's a simple, high-carb fuel that's gentle on a slow-moving system during those cooler shoulder seasons. You're basically matching the fuel type to the engine's speed. The golden rule for summer feeding is simple. Only give them what they can completely finish in about 5 minutes. If there's anything left floating around after that, you've fed them too much. And if you're in a heat wave, adding a fountain or an air stone can be a total lifesaver for them by pumping more oxygen into the water. Oh, and summer is the perfect time to use foods with stuff like spirulina or krill to really make their colors pop. Okay, as summer starts to fade, we head into our next critical transition, autumn. The easiest way to think about this is like it's the mirror image of spring. It's all about slowly, gradually winding things down and getting the fish ready for their long winter rest. You'll recognize the pattern here. Once the water temperature consistently dips below 14 Celsius, or about 57 Fahrenheit, it's time to stop the high-protein summer food and switch right back to that easy-to-digest wheat germ. You'll cut back to feeding just once a day, again, during the warmest part of the afternoon, and, just like in the spring, once that temperature hits the 10 degrees Celsius mark and stays there, you stop feeding entirely. And this is why getting the autumn feeding right is so important. You're not just slowing things down for the sake of it. You're giving them the perfect fuel to build up the essential fat reserves they are literally going to live on all winter long. A fish that's well fed in autumn is a fish that will be healthy and thriving come springtime.
And that brings us to winter. Now, honestly, this season is often the hardest one for us as fish keepers. Our instinct is to care for our animals, to feed them, but the absolute best thing you can do for them in winter is to do almost nothing at all.
Right now, your fish are in a hibernation-like state. It's called torpor. Their metabolism has just slowed to a crawl. So, below 5 degrees Celsius or 41 Fahrenheit, there is absolutely no feeding. None. In that little gray area between 5 and 10 degrees, if you get a weirdly warm day and you actually see them moving around looking for food, you could offer a tiny pinch of wheat germ. But we are talking a couple of times a week max. The safest and best rule is simply not to feed at all.
I really need this to sink in. Feeding your fish in cold water is not an act of kindness. It is actively harmful. Their digestive system is shut down. That food will literally just sit in their gut and rot, causing nasty internal infections and fouling up the water at a time when your filter's good bacteria are also dormant. You're doing way more harm than good.
So we've gone through all 4 seasons, and it really just comes down to a few core ideas. Let's just boil it all down into a few unbreakable rules of feeding. First, and this is the big one, never overfeed. Less is always better than too much. If you do overfeed, scoop out the leftovers right away. Next, trust your thermometer, not the calendar. It is your single most important tool. Also, just watch your fish. Their activity level will tell you everything you need to know. And finally, if anything seems off, the water's cloudy, a fish looks sick, the first thing you do is stop feeding until you figure out what's wrong. So the big takeaway here is this. Feeding your pond fish is so much more than just tossing some pellets into the water. It's about understanding their biology and working with them, in rhythm with the temperature. And it really reframes the whole question, doesn't it? When you go out to the pond, are you just giving them food, or are you actually managing their entire world?